Greetings and welcome to this UC Berkeley online event where we'll be talking about one of the most important projects now underway at the university. I'm Dan Mogulof with the Campus Office of Communications and Public Affairs. Every day there are new disturbing stories about the disparate financial and health impacts of the coronavirus pandemic. And while we are all struggling to confront unprecedented challenges, the situation is truly dire for many of our fellow Americans. The same holds true for Cal's community of 42,000 students. And to support our students at a time of profound and unanticipated needs, the university is now deploying the Student Emergency Fund, which is providing much needed direct financial support to a growing number of Berkeley students who are struggling to get by. Today, we're going to talk more about the program, why it matters, what it provides, and how you can help. Joining us are Chancellor Christ, undergraduate student Marjan Rajabi, Associate Dean of Students Samuel Santos, our Director of Financial Aid Cruz Grimaldo, and Kathy Kwan, a member of Berkeley's Board of Trustees, who has stepped forward to support the Student Emergency Fund with an extraordinary gift. Carol, let me start with you. Talk a little bit more about exactly what the Student Emergency Fund is. Is it something new? Is it just another form of financial aid?
The Student Emergency Fund was started in 2011 when there was a terrible fire in an apartment building on Telegraph Avenue, and many students lost all their belongings and, of course, didn't have renter's insurance. And so we started raising money for a fund to help these students. And we've used it over the years when students have sudden emergencies that have a financial element to them. Now it's become so important to us as so many of our students' lives, their family lives have been upended. They've lost jobs, they've lost internships, they have sudden financial needs, and the community is really stepping up to help students in this way.
Let me ask you something. You've been in higher education for your entire professional life. Is this unprecedented? Have you ever seen anything like this in terms of the kind of needs you're hearing about among a student body?
No, I never have seen anything in terms of the kinds of needs that we see in the student body. In part, that's because our student body is much more socioeconomically diverse than it was at the beginning of my career, certainly. But also, in part, it reflects this extraordinary emergency in which the economy has essentially shut down. There's been such a cataclysmic drop in economic activity, creating emergencies for many of our students.
You know, I want to bring Kathy Kwan into the conversation now. Kathy, you've been a member of the Board of Trustees. Tell us a little bit about the nature of the gift you've given to the Student Emergency Fund and why you decided to step forward in the way that you have.
So I've been involved with the campus since 2006, and I've had the opportunity to work with a number of units on campus, the School of Public Health, Equity and Inclusion, Data Sciences, and Letters and Science, to name a few. This is a very unique gift in many ways for me, and usually I tend to focus on project-based initiatives. It achieves a particular purpose, it benefits the student experience. But this gift is really from the heart. And it is inspired by my experience in 2013. I met an incredible first generation Latinx transfer student who was a chemical engineering student who's articulate, super bright, really impressive. But his family had encountered financial difficulties as a result of the recession and had, through a series of mishaps, he had lost his financial aid. And I ended up stepping in personally, wrote a check for his tuition for his last year at Cal. And he ultimately went on to become a PhD student at the University of Michigan and landed several key fellowships. And what I think about when I think about the gift that I've made today is because he had that small amount of financial aid at that time in his life, he was able to continue on the trajectory of an incredible life. And what I think about when I think about Cal students is they're talented, they're bright, they are tomorrow's leaders. They're our doctors, they're going to be our civil leaders, they're going to be our academicians. We have a chance and an opportunity to keep them on their path. And I just really hope that the community will rise and join me on this journey, because we really cannot afford to let this very diverse, talented group of people not finish their trip at Cal.
So my understanding is that your gift was $1 million, but you also want it to be a challenge of sorts, a way to catalyze additional giving. What's your message to people who are watching today?
I have a couple messages. First of all, the need is incredible. And even though we have the CARES Act in place, there's many populations that may not be covered by the CARES Act, and every dollar counts. And so any contribution, large or small, is greatly appreciated. I think the other thing is that a lot of us may I think we're all caught up in our lives because of shelter in place. And maybe this is the time to look around and ask yourself, what can I do to move the needle to make things better? And the last thing I would say is, life has many chapters. And one of the challenges about life sometimes is you feel out of control. And I have had many chapters in my life. And what I would say is when I'm giving, I have a much more positive perspective about life. I feel like I'm moving the needle. I'm engaged in the community. And I want people to realize that the gift is much about giving to other people, but also about giving a little hope to yourself.
Bruce, let me come to you as our Director of Financial Aid. Talk to us a little bit about how big are the grants that students are getting? What can they use them for? How is this different than traditional financial aid?
Sure. So, 2 out of 3 students, even in the best circumstances on our campus, receive some form of financial aid. And this pandemic has just been more urgent. And so on average, students are receiving about $1,500 in emergency grant dollars. And it's being used for a variety of needs: to purchase devices, for unearned work study, because the shelter in place dried up their work study opportunities in the community, for relocation expenses. Perhaps the funding that they had for rent needed to be deployed for other resources, and now they find themselves short. It's quite a range of need that we are seeing.
I just want to mention, for those of you who are watching, we're going to, after we talk a little bit more about the Student Emergency Fund, we are going to be taking as many of your questions as we can. But Cruz, let me stick with you here for a second and ask, so I'm a student and I need help. What do I do? Where do I go? I mean, there's no physical office I can go to. So how does it work?
I think through a great partnership that we have on campus with the Basic Needs Center and with the Graduate Assembly and with the Graduate Division and with our student leaders in the ASUC, there is a portal, the COVID-19 Relief Fund website, that helps direct students to different pathways for accessing funds. And through a partnership with the Berkeley International Office for Basic Needs and a Graduate Division, we are supporting students as best we can. The need is so great. And so to Kathy's point, every bit helps, and there can be no gift that is too big or too small to help our students at this time.
Super, thanks. And so we've been talking about needs, and now I want to talk with Marjan, one of our undergraduate students, who, my understanding, Marjan, is that you've been a recipient of some of the funds from the Student Emergency Fund. Tell us a little bit about your life story right now and how that fund has helped and what you're using the assistance for.
So I am currently a junior at UC Berkeley studying integrative biology. I also am a student parent, so I have been really supported throughout my transition back into Cal this current year, but it kind of got uprooted when this pandemic happened. So this is my first semester back, actually. And right when the pandemic happened, we had decided to move to a larger apartment. My husband's job actually cut their pay to minimum wage. Many of his team members were let go on furlough, and we were kind of put at this struggle to figure out how we're going to start paying more rent. You know, I also have my son at my mom's house most of the days when I'm at school, but because both my parents are high risk, I was no longer allowed to take them there in fear of risking their lives. And also my son's only 2 years old. I didn't really want him to be in, you know, risk at getting COVID-19. So we've been home 24/7, and you know, the lack of financial security that we had before, I was kind of always thinking, you know, rent's going to come up, what's going to happen? And I got an email saying that there's an emergency student fund that is going to be dispersed into my account, and it was roughly $1,500. And I immediately started to cry. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Take your time. Take your time.
It was just a huge sigh of relief because I wasn't sure if we were going to get the stimulus check when that was going to happen. Everything was kind of up in the air. And it was so beautiful to see that there was something like this available for students like me. And I'm sure there's so many others that need help. And I've had multiple friends who've come to me and say their laptops have broken down right now. And I've pointed out the emergency fund that's available right now. And it's so hard because this is such uncertain times and we don't know what's going to happen next. And to just at least have a sense of financial security is amazing. And like amazing donors like you, Kathy Kwan, like we're like indebted to you forever.
Marjan,
Sorry,
thank you.
Emotional.
Yeah, no, please. I think we're all deeply moved by what you had to say, and I want to turn to Samuel Santos now. How are we engaging with students? It's so evident that there is profound need, and yet we're physically distant. How is your office able to provide the support and facilitate that sense of community and belonging, Samuel?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Dan. So I would just say that across the university, the Division of Equity and Inclusion, the Graduate Division, and Student Affairs really has been really preoccupied with how do we create that sense of connection and support for students. Some examples I'd like to point out in Student Affairs would be through the Career Center, which has moved all of their services online to online appointments. Rec Sports has been offering classes virtually for students to participate in. The Public Service Center has offered a number of ways for students to get engaged and involved. So almost every department in Student Affairs has really pivoted to supporting and finding ways to connect with students online.
Carol, I want to come back to you. I mean, hearing Kathy and hearing Marjan and everyone who's spoken so far, to me, it speaks of the import of our extended Cal family now, that Cal community. What's your own take on that? And what would you like to convey to the people about that subject who are watching today?
This seems to me such a paradoxical time because on the one hand, we're all socially isolated. We're probably spending more time alone than most of us have spent in perhaps our lives. And yet I have seen the community come together in the most extraordinary way. It's almost as if this pandemic, this emergency, has brought out the best in so many people who want to give of whatever resources they have, whether they're the scientists that are changing the focus of their labs, or the graduate students that are mixing up hand sanitizer in their laboratory, or the extraordinary generosity of donors like Kathy that have come forward and said, what can we do to help? We care about this community. We care about, I'm sure that many of you have heard the we're not all in the same boat. I think that that's really important to recognize about this pandemic. We're not all in the same boat. It hits people very, very differently in terms of impacts of illness and differently in terms of the impact of the economic crisis that the pandemic has created. So I feel that this crisis is showing the best of the Cal community and shows how vibrant it is, even at this moment of extraordinary physical distancing and a virtual world.
Kathy, I want to come to you as a follow-up on what Carol was just talking about. it's a pretty important and powerful time to be an alum, isn't it? Has it changed your relationship with the campus and the way you think about that relationship?
I, I have to say that I have a much deeper relationship with the campus as an alumni than as a student. And I have to say that right now, as a philanthropist, I have been in the field since 2006. I started here at Cal, but I still am really looking for opportunities to be effective and impactful. And I don't think I have a lot of different opportunities to give. And when you give at Cal, it's an amazing investment and opportunity, because what you're really doing is you're working on multiple fronts. Some of my gifts have really been the best for very bright, talented students. But like a gift like this really kind of gets at the equity and inclusion question. Because while the gifts are relatively small, it kind of levels the playing field. And I feel very, I'm not sure you could say, I feel very confident that the campus is going to do the best they can with the dollars. And as a philanthropist, what I'm really looking for is a good partner. I'm looking for execution, but I'm also looking for a large population of individuals who will both benefit and take advantage of the gift. And I have so much faith in the campus to do right by these dollars and by these students that I'm actually feeling quite good.
Thank you. And Cruz, I want to follow up with one last question about the fund, and then we're going to turn to questions we're getting from the audience. So Kathy touches on this issue of stewardship and expressed her confidence, but what else can you tell people that would put them at ease in terms of how their donations, of how this fund is being stewarded? And then just a little bit about whether there are other sources of help. So two separate questions here.
Sure, Dan. So what I would say is that our financial aid team are very thoughtful professionals that care deeply about students. And so from the student, and we take our role in student development very seriously. And so we want students to know that they can trust us as credible guides as they navigate all of the resources that are available to them. And we certainly want the donor community to know that we have tried and true strong fund management practices in the financial aid and scholarships office. And we have a philosophy of strong donor and fund stewardship. So we do want the community to trust that we will execute and support our students as quickly and as thoughtfully as possible. And then in regards to other funding that has been made available, we did receive our student portion funding of our CARES allocation of $15 million. And we are actively working with a broad array of stakeholders on the methodology for distributing that aid. And we're hoping that some of those dollars will be distributed this week to undergraduates and next week to the graduate community.
Thanks so much. Now, I want to turn to some of the questions that have come in from alumni, but I should also mention for staff and faculty who may be watching this, we're going to be having a campus conversation with Chancellor Christ on Monday. But before I move on to the questions, Kathy, I know you wanted to add something, please.
I just want to add one really important point about student financial aid is that we are actually in a super volatile economic period. And what we don't actually know right now is how big the need is, because a lot of the financial aid calculations are based on 2018 and 2019 income. And I think if you look around you, the number of people who are what they call newly needy, that have never required assistance before, is accelerating rapidly. And so one of the motivators around this fund for me was, hey, we may have students coming out in the summer, in late, early fall, saying, I can't make my tuition, I can't make my rent because my dad got laid off, or I had a change in my summer internship, or I can't get part-time work. And that's what we have to be constantly thinking about, is how quickly this situation is moving and who else is going to get affected.
Thank you. Profoundly important point. Thanks for adding that. Carol, I want to come to you with two questions that seem to be rising to the top here. And one is about tuition, about why the university has not agreed to a discount in tuition in the fall if classes are online, or in the current semester for that matter. And then also, there's a lot of, I'm saying a lot of expression of concern and doubt about the very idea of being able to move students back into residential dorms in the fall. So those two questions.
Okay, let me answer the second question first. We're working very hard on the question of how to make available to students our residence halls safely. So I've just stood up an advisory committee to me on public health and testing. We will be developing a testing regimen for the campus. We'll also be developing a way to use the dorms that maintains social distancing, that has a way of quickly identifying cases, isolating cases, contact tracing. So all of the public health measures that everybody's been reading about in the paper Berkeley is now right in the middle of planning how we're going to use them to ensure as safe a possible environment for our students in the fall, and also for our faculty and staff, as safe an environment for them as possible. In terms of refunds, first of all, I believe we're going to be in a hybrid mode in the fall, unless we have another huge outbreak of the virus, much more severe. I anticipate that some things will be in person and some things are online. The whole system of the University of California is not contemplating tuition refunds, because students indeed have access to the classes in which they are enrolled. They're getting a full credit for that. And we are responding to a public health emergency in providing an alternative mode of delivery of those classes and those credits and those degrees in order to protect the health of the entire community.
And a number of people are also asking, when will there be a final decision, do you think, about how the fall will look? What degree of hybridization will there be? What will the balance be between online and in person?
We expect to have a final decision made by mid-June, but there will be certainly the opportunity for students who cannot come to campus, whether it's because of travel restrictions or inability to get visas or health issues or family issues. We will have what we're calling a semester in the cloud for students who cannot return to campus.
And speaking of that, Samuel, I think this next question is for you, but if I'm wrong, correct me, please. This person wrote that Berkeley has a long history of international students. How are they doing during this academic? Were many stuck and unable to return home? And has the EAP, Education Abroad program, been suspended? Talk to us a little bit about that portion of our student population.
Sure. So I don't know the specifics of the EAP, but I can speak broadly to international students. I would say that many of our international students are in a variety of situations, very challenging, right? Some are here and have chosen not to go back home. Some are at home and would have a challenging time getting back here. We're doing our very best to move as many services as possible online, virtually, and making sure that we're as responsive as we can be. In the graduate division, for example, Larissa, who's our director of student involvement, takes direct one-on-one online appointments. Counseling and psychological services is also available remotely and online. So we've tried to remove everything we can that's in person online. I will say that you highlight an important point, which is international students face a different challenge and more barriers in terms of access to campus community and support.
Thanks. And Cruz, I think this next one is for you. This is this person says, a majority of students live off campus by necessity, and their rental policies are not as flexible, perhaps, as the campuses. Is the university able to, or are we thinking about providing relief funding to help those students with their rent obligations should fall and spring be in remote instruction. What can you tell us about that portion of our student population?
Sure. So we just released last week our financial aid packages to students for the next semester. So students already have the information about what financial aid may be available. If their housing situation changes and they opt to move back home, then we may adjust their financial aid for to accommodate for that reality. But if they are continuing to pay rent in an apartment in the community, then we will continue to offer financial aid at that level.
Carol, the next question I want to direct and point in your direction, and that is, people are asking, are there other ways they can help? Somebody asked, are there opportunities for industry to partner with Berkeley on specific material needs, such as providing free mobile hotspots and laptops to students who need them? What else can you tell us about ways that alumni can pitch in during these trying times?
Well, what a wonderful question. I would say yes, all of the above. I mean, one of the things that this crisis has done is brought into relief the kinds of inequities that exist in the situations of our students. So when we went remote, many students went home, but that didn't necessarily mean they had the right, they didn't have laptops or good connectivity in their homes. So those are really excellent ways of helping the campus.
Marjan, I want to come back to you at this point, if that's okay. I'm wondering what your sense is. I'm sure you're in touch with a lot of fellow students. How widespread are these challenges and difficulties we've been talking about? Are there isolated pockets, or are you hearing a lot of similar stories from your friends?
I'm hearing tons of similar stories from different socioeconomic backgrounds. It doesn't matter, how much their parents make, how much they're making themselves. Everyone is struggling. Like I said before, a lot of my friends have lost their laptops this semester right before finals, and they're struggling to figure out how they're going to replace those. Many have been forced to move back home, and they're still currently paying rent on campus and near campus. So everyone is struggling.
Got it. Cruz, I'm curious, do you feel like you have all the tools you need to work with right now, given what Marjan is sharing with us, given the pervasiveness of these challenges across the student body?
I think that, I often have said this, that all we need is funding, because we do and the infrastructure to deploy funding pretty quickly to students. And really that is always our limitation, is that the needs far outweigh the resources that we have available.
I've got it. Carol, I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought, because we're at the end of our time here. I think it's really easy to feel pessimistic, and we've been talking a lot in the administration about these challenges and budgetary challenges and all the rest. How do you feel about the future of the campus? How do you feel we've responded, and how is that leading to your assessment of what lies ahead for us?
Thank you for that question, Dan. Berkeley was one of the earliest responders to the COVID-19 crisis. We closed early on March 9th. And I think that the history of our experience thus far with the virus has shown that that was a really wise decision. It's amazing when I think in retrospect of how we completely changed the operation of the university in a matter of 2 or 3 days. It's really a testimony to the strength of the community. And I feel so inspired by the planning that's going on right now, both for the summer and the fall. And what I keep telling my cabinet, the people that I work with, is there will be a day after, and we're going to be in a stronger position on the day after because of what we do now.
Thank you. And I want to thank everybody who joined us. Kathy, I want to thank you for your incredible gift and inspiring words. Marjan, for your courage in sharing what was a difficult story to hear, and I'm sure an even more difficult story to live, obviously. And for Cruz and Samuel for your continued work on behalf of the campus. Again, we'll be having a campus conversation with Chancellor Christ on Monday for staff and faculty and whoever else wants to join. Thank you to all of you who joined us today, and be safe, stay well, and please keep your distance. Thank you.